Welcome back to Big Fish in the Middle Kingdom. I'm Brendan Davis, your host, and this week's guest is Zach Cagle. Zach moved to China from Atlanta, originally to study, but a love of cooking for friends and a challenge from a local buddy led to his creating Zach's BBQ here in Zhengzhou, where I am for a couple of weeks. When I arrived here last week, my local host stressed that I had to visit Zach's and try their food, and I am very glad that I heeded that advice, so thanks, Frank. As we discuss in the show, Zach's BBQ has been honored by TripAdvisor as not only the best foreign restaurant in Zhengzhou, which is a modern city of about 8 to 10 million people, but as the best restaurant in Zhengzhou. Now, having eaten there the last 2 nights in a row, I can definitely see why. I kind of fanboy out on Zach a little bit because his food is just so damn good. We have a very freewheeling and wide-ranging conversation about America and China and really everything in between that occurs to us in the time allotted. And I think that, thanks to the Southern mind meld speech patterns that Zach and I both slipped into, plus our mutual sync about our different conversational topics, there are a grand total of 0 edits in the actual interview this time, which is a new record. You can't get less than 0, right? I mention this because I've heard from some regular listeners that they really do like the less edited interviews. So as long as I can avoid any technical issues or keep myself mostly on track, I will aim to do that more and more often. So hope you enjoy. But before we get into the interview, let me give you a quick update from our sponsor, Stackery. As you may know by now, if you've been listening to the show the last month or so, Stackery is the global leader in international parcel forwarding from the U.S. to anywhere in the world. The way it works is that you shop at any U.S. retailer, you have your packages shipped to your Stackery address, and once everything has arrived, Stackery consolidates your stuff and ships it to you anywhere in the world, even China, saving you up to 80% off the shipping costs versus shipping things directly from the store. Stackery provides free storage, same-day consolidation of your packages, and a tax-free U.S. address for you to use. This week's update on my own Stackery story is that all of my items have now arrived at their warehouse in New Hampshire, and my very first shipment is being consolidated as I speak these words to you. Stackery will do their packing consolidation magic, and then my streamlined package will be making its way to me in Beijing. I'll update you as my Stackery story continues, and it's really easy to use their site and get yours started today too. Sign up via the link included in the show notes and use the offer code BIGFISH at the checkout, that's BIGFISH, all one word, to save 10% off of your first shipment. All right, now please enjoy my interview with Zach Cagle. So I'm here with Zach Cagle. Zach, how are you, man?
I'm good. I'm honored to speak with you, man.
Well, it is a pleasure for me for a lot of reasons. I will have done an intro where I set this up a little bit, but why don't you tell us, first of all, where are we sitting right now?
Me and you are upstairs, second floor of my American barbecue restaurant in Henan, Zhengzhou, central China.
And my traditional first question, I know a little bit of the answer to this because I've talked to you a little bit, but my traditional first question is please give us the short version of who you are, where you're from, and why China, and then we will unpack it from there. And you have quite a story. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, it's just random luck, I guess. I came in 2008 to study, ended up coming back to teach, ended up not liking that, and then got stuck, met my wife, and here we are.
Nice. And
no offense to my wife, by the way.
Oh, sure. Well, you're going to have to explain that one to her. She's lovely. I met her. And your daughter's running around, who's super cute.
Yeah, if she shows up, I'm really sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry. Again, there's a restaurant setting up downstairs for a very busy night. So you might hear some plates and some noise, or occasionally a very enthusiastic toddler wondering who has stolen her daddy. That's me.
Hey, it's nice to be wanted, right?
Dude, all right, it's good to be popular. So this is fun for me because I told you a little bit about this, where I do the show basically from one of the home bases in Beijing. But because I'm down here for a few weeks on this top secret assignment in Zhengzhou, I have the opportunity to talk to some local expats. And I've been to Henan province, but I've been to Anyang before. Mm-hmm. I've never been here to the capital. And what can you tell me about just Zhengzhou in general? Like, what is this city in kind of a nutshell?
Well, the Zhengzhou locals love to claim it as one of the oldest original cities in China. I believe that holds true back to the Shang Dynasty?
It does, yeah. That's actually, I was helping develop a big historical movie based in and around Anyang and this province, and so
Nice.
I learned enough to be
So you saw
functional slash dangerous.
You saw the Oracle, the
That's
Oracle
the
movies?
movies. The movie's called Oracle.
Oh, nice.
It's all about King Wuding and Lady Fu Hao and
Wow.
the origin of Chinese civilization.
A history nerd over here.
Well, it's my old company, and I wish them well in getting the movie going. But
Awesome.
so yeah, Zhangzhou is a big part of that, the foundational history of what is now known as China.
Yeah, and surrounding Zhengzhou is thousands of years worth of dynasties that have come and gone. My wife is down the street in Luoyang, which is maybe half an hour by G train. It's, I think, been the capital 14 different times. So there's a ton of history here. And now recently, over in the last, maybe since China reopened, they've just exploded here because Zhengzhou is the cross ties of the east-west, north-south railway. And now with the G train and with some new peripheral governmental things with pollution and emissions and cheap labor force, Zhengzhou has exploded. There's just, it's nuts.
Well, and it's interesting, people who are not China savvy about the G train is basically the high speed trains.
Oh, yeah.
That's it's you don't know. That's how I got here from Beijing. And so it was a pretty painless. It was like 3 hours on the money.
They're amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, no, those trains are awesome. I totally love them, and I hope everybody else, if you don't have bullet trains where you live, I hope you get them.
I hope you do too, because
They're freaking awesome. So here's the thing. And of course, I'm, polite to guests. I mean, basically, so that you know, about a third of the guests are people who I have known for a while for whatever reason. About a third are people who I'm acquainted with but have never really had like a big detailed conversation. And then about a third of the people are people who I totally don't know and I met through friends or through my own research. And you're in this latter category, although I'd like to think that we'll stay in touch, obviously. We have something in common. Where are you from originally?
Atlanta, Georgia.
And that's basically my hometown as well, before Hollywood corrupted me for a long time. So how the hell did you get from Atlanta to Zhengzhou, China?
Well, Georgia State was my university.
Which was also mine, which was weird to see the pennant on the wall, as
Nice.
you pointed out.
You got to get a picture.
Oh, we do. We do have to get a picture of that. And he has the UGA pennant right below the Georgia State
What a
one.
small world, man.
Which is, I lived in Athens for 8 years.
That's
So,
crazy. That's
it is
ridiculous.
it is totally crazy. So yeah, how did you get? So yeah, you came here for teaching. Tell your story, because I want to talk about what you're doing here now, which is
Well,
awesome.
There's a University of Georgia, a Georgia University's system that does this study abroad, and they come here every year. I believe the guy, his name is Dr. Wu. He's gonna hate me for forgetting his name, but anyways, he comes here every year with a group of kids from all over the state, and they come to do a summer, basically a summer abroad. Yeah,
Okay.
and they hit all the hot spots from what you just mentioned to Anyang, to Luoyang, to Zhengzhou, Beijing, Shanghai. And so I came on that trip in 2008. I went back, kind of graduated, not really.
Oh, okay, it's another story.
But then I came to teach at the same university. I think that was 2010. It was fall of 2010 I came back.
Okay.
And I met my wife the second day I was in the city.
Oh, that's crazy.
So, and they say that love, you hear it, it sounds like bullshit. I don't know if I can curse. But,
You can.
okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
You can.
But it's true. You walked in, there was this woman crocheting in the corner, and I walked up. I think I had been drinking a lot, and I walked up to her table, or stumbled up to her table, and said, "What the hell are you doing crocheting in a bar?" Not knowing she spoke perfect English.
Yeah.
And she just kind of casually puts it on the table and says, "Who the are you?"
And you're like, whoa.
Fell backwards in
Whoa.
love, and I was like, "I'm gonna marry you," and it happened. So
Did you actually say that in the moment? Sort of. You said it inside your
I don't know.
brain.
I was drunk. I don't remember.
You don't remember it. Well, it's a good story, and I don't mean to mess with the Hollywood version of this. Well, she's quite lovely from me
Thanks.
meeting her. So and you have a really awesome, precocious daughter.
Yeah.
So what is it that you do here? You mentioned upstairs your restaurant, Southern Style Barbecue. How in the world? And again, I know a little bit of this because I grilled him last night. I came here, full disclosure, I came here last night, recommendation of the friend whose business brought me here to so hi, Frank.
Hey, Frank. What's up? Thanks.
Yeah, man, Frank's company brought me here for a few weeks to do a thing, and he said, you've got to go meet my buddy Zach, who has Zach's Barbecue. It's the best Southern Style barbecue maybe in the country, definitely. I'm like,
I'll take
okay. I was like, look, I'm a Southerner. and I'm a big guy I've eaten some barbecue.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, Frank, sure, Frank, you're Canadian, no offense, okay. So I'm sure it's great. Holy shit. Yeah, so I came in last night, and just the smell. I contacted Zach, and he said, well, come after 6. Barbecue's ready at 6. So I'm like, okay. So I timed it to come last night, and I walked in the door, and it looks cool. I'm like, oh, my God. I smelled this place. What you're doing is seriously magic. You know, it's really fantastic.
I'm glad we didn't let you down after all that.
Well, me too, man. And I'm going to eat after we're done with this as well. And then I'm going to post this tonight. So I'm recording this like 5 hours before it goes live. But as I learned, you were not you didn't grow up at 4 years old cooking. This came seemingly out of nowhere for you. So how did you become the maestro of Southern style barbecue in Zhengzhou, China?
Just fell face first into a void, I guess. I don't know. Luck turned into hard work, honestly. I started cooking in college. I had a friend named Sam who I lived with, and I never cooked for myself ever. He would always come back with these magical bags full of stuff from a place called the Farmer's Market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As ignorant as I was in my youth. And I was like, dude, take me with you. I want to see where this stuff comes from. And I walk in, and it's just like, ah. And so I got really into cooking right before I came to China. And then after I met my wife, I was forced to go to learn Chinese by her parents, who were very open-minded and very cool about the whole situation. But they were like, you're going to marry our daughter, you're going to live in China, you need to speak some Chinese.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. So I went to the local university nearby. They have a program for foreigners. And it's mostly Koreans and Japanese, and there's a few Americans and Brazilians and other people sprinkled in. And so I met these guys that didn't speak any English, so we couldn't communicate at all. And so as we slowly learned basic elementary Chinese together, we started having barbecues and just getting drunk. And so every week it would be Brazilian barbecue or Japanese barbecue or Korean barbecue. And eventually it was my turn to figure it out. And so I remember we made our first rack of ribs in those tiny little Chinese toaster ovens.
Yeah.
Like that's just
totally.
Like looking back.
Yeah, you're like, how in the world did I do that?
Oh, it was awful. It was putrid, But finally, I convinced my wife that it was a good idea. There was a friend of ours who had a bar here who set the entire bar scene in Zhengzhou maybe 6-7 years ago. It was called Tao Bar. And the bar scene exploded once that place got popular. And he looked at us one day across the bar and said, guys, you know what you should be doing right now that no one's doing? American barbecue would crush it here. And I was just like, you're right. I'm going to figure out how to make American barbecue, and I'm going to figure out how to make it really well. And so my wife bought me a smoker. We had a patio at our house, and I just sat on the patio and sunbathed and read and watched TV shows and made awful barbecue for half a year until it got better and better and better and better.
Yeah.
And now we've been doing this for 4.5 years, serving people food, so it's good now, I think. I hope.
It is very good, and so I don't sound like your publicist. I'll leave it at that.
I just met him yesterday. It's true.
Totally true. But look, you have the display ad outside. Number one on TripAdvisor. I mean, you are cool, yeah. You are pretty revered. You're like, is it number one expat like Lao Wai barbecue or number one restaurant in Zhengzhou or some version of this? What is the number one? Well,
with a little bit of humility sprinkled in, it's there's not a whole lot of other competition in town.
Yeah.
But it's still awesome. We've been number one for I think ever since we opened.
This is like of all restaurants.
And there's a bunch of hotels that are getting in the game, and so it's really cool that we can keep that pace up.
Yeah.
But no, it's our goal when we opened was. I don't just want to open a restaurant and stamp a Lao face on it, or a foreigner face on it, for those who don't know what Lao means. But we wanted to be honest to God, competitive as hell back home.
Yeah.
And even I go to Atlanta now, and some places just, I don't.
You think that you're doing it better, yeah.
It's just sad that Atlanta can't get decent barbecue. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure I have some local friends who live there who could tell you
sure
this,
they'll disagree
spot.
with me, yeah.
Well, they could tell you, you got to go to this guy and talk to this guy Joe, and So basically, top-rated restaurant in the city. And what's funny is Zhengzhou is technically a tier 2 city, I believe, which for people who do not live here The tier 1 cities are like the most developed and the largest. The tier 2 cities are very developed, but then also smaller in size, and then it kind of goes down until you get to really rural places. This place has 8 million freaking people.
10, depending on how
10,
far
depending on like where you draw the line.
Yeah.
So it's still, from American standards, it's a giant place.
It's massive.
For China, it's like a hamlet. It's like a tiny little spot in the road. But number one restaurant out of a city of 8 to 10 million people is pretty cool. So fist
Thanks,
bump,
man.
nicely done. So
thanks for the props.
absolutely, man. So talk to us a little bit. How did you what was the process like? How did you figure out how to do this,
Well, the first thing
How do you become a barbecue maestro?
Watch YouTube. YouTube's awesome to learn stuff. I guess, you can always just Google things, but just practice. It's time and lots, like I said earlier, of terrible, awful, I wouldn't feed this to my dog barbecue,
Yeah.
But the hardest part we had was trying to convince the local butchers to cut the pieces
to give you what you needed,
to give us
basically.
the cuts that we needed.
Yeah.
They were like, it's too wasteful, or it's too difficult, or blah blah blah. I was like, I'll give you my money. Please just cut it for me. Like, can I just go use your chine saw, or give me a handsaw? And eventually we got somebody in our neighborhood to help, and so we got a good relationship with that guy, and it's been just a slow, steady, aggravating attempt to find better and better cuts of meat as we continue to do this now.
So we're going to kind of have a barbecue heavy piece of this, and then we're going to get into your other things.
Yeah.
So while we're on the barbecue, let's talk barbecue. What are some of the secrets to it? I mean, obviously, I'm going to say, even as a total rookie, but a guy who's eaten a lot, obviously the quality of the meat and the cut. The cut is got to be a top priority. But like, what are the secrets to really good barbecue?
You got to know your weights. You got to know your temperatures, because if you don't know your temperature, I don't know how you can cook. And you got to know your times, and those two things equal your time. And then it's just a matter of understanding your smokers and your hot spots and how to rotate, and a few secret unnecessary spritzes of whatever here and there, and overly rotating. But other than that, it's just love, time and love.
Well, that's a good. I like that answer. Do you? I don't know. I mean, do you marinate meat a certain amount of time, or do you?
Depends on what you're cooking. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, give me a few examples. My mom is a gourmet chef, and she's amazing. But she's going to key in on this, and I'm sure that there's every 5 or 10 people,
hey mom,
have 100 hi mom, is going to want to like try some recipes. So what are some tips you can help people up their barbecue game?
The easiest thing you can do, chicken is pretty easy. We brine it. It's mostly water, brown sugar, and salt. We brine it overnight just so that the flavor gets in the skin and the meat. And then we just smoke them. You just put it in. Chicken's really easy. You get it at 100 and what do we cook at? 225 for the chickens. And you want to get it to a safe internal temp of 160, 165 so that you're not contaminating anything. And then we actually cheat. We right before we serve it, we deep fry them just to get the skin crispy.
Oh,
so
right.
You got this soft smoke.
Oh yeah, because the smoker is not going to do the chicken, not get the skin crispy.
It's kind of flaccid skin, but then you deep fry it, gets it really crisp and nice.
Nice.
But mostly it's just rubs. For our beef ribs, it's just salt and pepper, and I cheat and use a little bit of celery salt.
Okay.
Just because I like that flavor.
The pork ribs.
The beef ribs.
Oh, the beef ribs.
Pork ribs is simple. We rub them down with our rub.
Yeah.
I kind of let them sit out for half an hour so the rub can kind of penetrate a little bit, and then put them in the smoker. Let science do its magic, and other than that, we have our own sauce, which being from Atlanta, I don't fall into a specific category of flavor or style, and so I kind of make barbecue that I think locals will really like, and that's kind of what we do. We're kind of a really light sauced barbecue.
I've noticed that, and it was really good. I mean, I've got no complaints, and I'm going to have something when we're done here, but. I was noticing that it's not drowning in sauce, which I like.
I have nothing to hide, so.
All right. Well, it ain't bragging if you can do it. So, well, how long does I'm quoting somebody, I can't even remember who I'm quoting with that. Not from the show, just from life. How long does it take to smoke like some ribs, for instance? Typically.
Depends on what you're smoking. If you're doing. There's multiple cuts of the rib.
Sure.
Further away from the spine as you get into the fattier regions.
Right.
most people like to say that the baby backs are done right about the time that the St. Louis or rib tips are starting to get going.
Okay.
Because there's a lot more connective tissue in there to break down. And it depends, honestly, on your, how much fat cap you have on there, how thick, how old the animal was, how big the ribs were. And so it's all weight. You can pretty much calculate your time based on the weight.
Okay.
But it's all still feel, and you kind of have to pay attention to each piece individually because every animal is different.
Sure. And so, again, we've talked about a lot of these things a bit, but what's the reception been like? I mean, obviously, people who are visiting and are using, for instance, TripAdvisor, who I should hit up for a sponsorship. I'm giving them a lot of love on this one.
Yeah.
But obviously, people seek you out. They want a certain thing, whether it's comfort food or they want this style of food. They hear from their friend, hey, you got to try this place, which is a great way to be discovered. But I imagine, this is not the kind of a tourist place where you're going to live on random tourists or always stumbling in the door. You've got to make local people happy as well. Like, what's your business mix kind of like, and how do you sort of integrate into the community here?
Well, we kind of run 2 restaurants, honestly, which is kind of difficult because we really want to keep it authentic for our foreign friends and all those randos that find us, thankfully on TripAdvisor, go TripAdvisor. But for the locals, we have never advertised really. We've gotten some pretty good media attention just because it's so unique and there's nothing else like it in the city, or at least style-wise. Mm-hmm. But they like it. They really. Most people that I know that are from China are really big into pork, and
pork is like the luxury meat here for people who don't know China really well. Pork is kind of more the luxury meat,
And that's kind of what we've done. Like, we've built this weird. And I say we're running 2 restaurants because we've built this sort of bastardized version of a barbecue restaurant. Mm-hmm. We're a 2-story sit-down barbecue restaurant.
Yeah, it's a big place.
We order
here
at the table. You don't really do that back home. You kind of go up to the counter. You point, I'll take a half a pound or whatever, a pound of this and that.
Yeah.
You go eat it. Bunch of paper towels and sawdust on the floor, and then you go home. But here it's a not a quick casual dining restaurant.
Exactly. No, this is a nice place, and it's on your sign it says good barbecue is. It either says it's expensive or it's not cheap. Both are accurate. Well, but I'm sure it's worth it. This is a certain kind of
expensive in China too.
Exactly.
So that's why I say we've created this weird version. And by running 2 restaurants, one to keep the foreigners happy, and we kind of sort of help them tailor and have a few off-menu things. And for the locals, they're mostly curious. And it's really cool to see their curiosity turn into just enjoyment, because we do our best to make it the same experience for everyone every time, so that when they do tell their friends, or their friends see it on their moments on WeChat, which is the social media app here, they all come in and they want that same picture, and they want that giant pile of meat in their face, and they want it to be good. And barbecue's hard to do that every single day, and we've been very aggravatingly so diligent about it.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you've had? There was the barbecue learning curve, which I think we've covered well enough, but in terms of just doing a business here, what are some of the bigger challenges that you've had, that you've overcome, or that you said, screw it, that one's, where you had to pivot? Whatever your story is, as much as you want to share.
That's a good question. We started from scratch, so learning how to run a business, we're still learning how to run a business. But we've had the grace of being in a place like Zhengzhou, where it's exploding before your very eyes. So the timing that we have of being lucky enough and fortunate enough to be here, it's just this unbelievable sort of grace that now we're ready to amp up our game and maybe go other places. So who knows? But in terms of we fight with the locals a lot. Not the locals, but some neighbors are a little, I hate to say ethnocentric, but
Well, talk about it as much as you're comfortable, we're obviously, people come in this show want to be here, right? And you want to be here.
I want to be here.
And you've got your family here. Yeah. But the reality is we
don't have much
guests.
anonymity.
we kind of stand out. So it's sometimes a little hard to integrate and be.
Well, we've had some issues, not I hate to say local. We have some issues, and then we produce a lot of smoke. Delicious smelling smoke.
Right.
And so in the beginning, the people who run this place, and I'm going to shit on them hard because they are awful. My 2-year-old could run this place better than the place we currently are.
You mean like the development?
The developer, which is Zhonghong, by the way, don't ever work with them. And their Wuya, which is the sort of security guard team that runs the place.
No.
just shit for brains. And so we had a bunch of just idiotic run-ins with them. You know, we're trying to run a small business, and they give us all these issues about chairs out front, and our sign is 3 millimeters past the wall where it's not allowed to be, and we don't have this permit hanging in the right inch away from the left corner, but too close to the green paint, or something, you know, just
Right.
asinine stuff. And we've had knockdown, drag out, like police show up, me throwing Christmas trees in their pond kind of fights.
Okay.
And you know, I'm not proud of that behavior, but sometimes you got to stand your ground and defend yourself. And it took them a long time to realize all we want to do is run a small business.
Yeah.
And holy shit, they're successful and they're doing pretty well for themselves. Maybe we should just leave them alone. And they've kind of gotten that now, so it's nice. But it was a lot of blood boiling, unnecessary stress on top of the stress of trying to figure out how to run a restaurant.
So this is like, I mean, it's one part cultural differences and one part
Yeah.
perhaps ineptitude from your point of view.
Yeah. Well, and that's not that I don't want to be disrespectful.
Sure.
You have to be. You're a guest, like you said earlier.
Right.
And
But
I
you
consider myself a decent person, so
well,
sometimes.
that's well, you know, we try. We try. Well, again, it's what I notice. I mean, I know this also because as soon as Frank was telling me about this place, and of course I met a few people from my gig down here. So actually, one of the person who I met say, "Oh, you got to try this place." I'm like, "That's funny. You're the second person who's told me I've got to go to this guy's place."
Nice.
So no, it's good. You know, it's a small world, but your name's around. This is a big place. It's not fast, casual, sawdust on the floor kind of barbecue joint. It's you sit down, you order some, well-made food that is not like pocket change, and you have a quality beverage, and this is a place to like go make a night of it. It's not just sort of let's grab this on the way to something else. It's like a place people come and hang out. So I imagine that, would you say that it? I'm projecting, but were the foreigners like quicker to adopt this, or did you have some local people who saw it and were like totally into the idea? Or what was kind of your getting started and getting momentum going? What was that like?
I had been here for years before this opened. I came in 2010. We got the idea for this when I was at school in spring in 2012. So it took us a long time to even just me diddling and doodling in a notebook, being like, oh, I'm going to need barbecue sauce, and I'm going to need meat, and it's so much more than that. So it took a long time. I had a friend who was here at the time named Tanner, and he was interested enough, and we finally produced good enough tests and a lot of those tests became 10, 20, 30, 50, 70 people at my house every weekend.
Wow.
And so through my sort of being ingrained in the foreign community here and at my friend's bar, where we did barbecues as well, he was nice enough to let us do that. People knew this was coming, and they were happy to have a place to go eat that was most likely going to be authentic. And it was. And, we had some kinks to work out, but foreigners really gave us a lot of great support in the beginning, which sort of is always a telltale sign for our local friends, like, oh, what are these foreigners all excited about? This must be pretty good. And so they started trickling into the neighborhood, and then just word of mouth came in.
It seems like I was only here last night. I was here tonight, and you're just opening when I got here. But last night, it seemed like it was roughly 50-50,
Yeah, weekdays are harder than weekends. Weekends are packed. I mean, we get on a wait on the weekends, which is awesome. And it's foreigners come in on the weekends to mostly drink and have a burger or something.
Yeah.
But throughout the week, it's mostly locals and our Chinese friends, because I would estimate that we do 70 to 80% Chinese customers.
Okay.
Because there's only about 2,000 or 3,000 foreigners in this city.
Oh, yeah, and if you get a slice of that, it's not enough to keep the lights on.
Yeah, you can't run a business based on foreigners in this city.
Right.
But it's still nice to have the support and the love, so...
Well, and that's a takeaway that a lot of people. I won't name check anybody because I forget whose mouth to assign what words. But several of the other food and beverage people who've been on the show have, in their way, said the same thing. Where you can't, if you try to cater to an expat, to a foreigner or a tourist market, you're dead.
Unless you're on the Bund in Shanghai or something.
Right. Unless you're in a place that's like a funnel where they can't escape. And, there's the one place that's in English and I can go there. But
there's 10 million of them versus 2,000 of us.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
And I hate to do it them versus us, but in terms of sheer numbers.
Well, sure. More importantly, I mean, if you're here, you have to want to be here. What is it? And look, you're married and you have a daughter and a business. But if you can somehow mentally subtract these obvious heart elements that keep you here and draw you, like what drew you to China? Like what planted that hook? You came over for on the study abroad thing, and you go back to Atlanta. Let's flash back a little bit. What was it? I mean, when you got back home, Atlanta is a vibrant, busy place with a ton going on. But what was it that that kind of got into your brain that made you think you needed to come back here?
I remember before I actually even came in the study abroad, I was sitting in a class in college, and it was a Chinese history class. It was post-Europeans showing up. I forgot that was not a very specific name, but it had a specific title. And I remember my professor was this sort of 60 to 70-year-old dude who was just the most extreme, in love with China, spoke perfect Chinese, was a specialist on a very acute period in Chinese history, and just was nuts about this
He
stuff.
was not ethnically Chinese.
No, he was a white dude who went to Brown or Harvard
Okay.
or somewhere,
Okay.
and was teaching this class, and I just was enthralled. And Chinese history it seems almost just forever.
Yeah, it's massive. It's thousands
It just goes
and thousands
on and on.
of years.
And so
Right,
just
right.
just like this ebb and flow of thousands of years, and it was just I found it fascinating because no offense to America, but our history's but a fart in the wind compared to what Chinese.
I say that all the time. I mean, I love our country despite the problems. But fact is that, I mean, I knew it's everybody. I campaigned for Bernie. People who listen to the show know how I feel about what's
It was funny to watch from abroad, to be honest.
I can imagine.
Just rip itself apart.
I have not been back to the U.S. since election week.
I can sense this is getting off topic, but I can absolutely sense a weird shift since.
It's very strange. No, but it's, you know what? About a third of the show is the U.S., about a third is China, about a third is everywhere else in the world. And I think everybody, look, I mean, these are the two most significant countries. I think that's part of why I have, dear listeners. I think that's why we have the listenership we have. And I think I don't have exclusively Americans. I have who I can get who I think is an interesting person on the show.
Cool.
It tends to be a lot of Americans just because that's who's represented among my world in Beijing. But the bottom line is that, we're at a unique moment in history.
Yeah.
And these are the two
These
are the two most significant players on the world stage. We're from one and we live in the other. So I think it's a natural thing to look at comparisons and whatnot. I forget where I was going with that.
You asked me, I have an answer for you now.
Yeah.
You asked me what drew me back.
Yes.
And after we just talked about it, I think just the sheer scale of it.
Yeah.
Because you go back to Atlanta, and it's like 6 million people, but it's just huge sprawl.
It's spread out really far, yeah.
And here, when you look out the window right there, there's 30,000 people within 7 iron.
That apartment development over there, yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
Well, it's like my place in Beijing, my.
And then just to watch it, I remember we came in 2008, where we had stayed had been bulldozed when I came back, and then just when I was here, it was over the last 7 years, it was like living in Sim City. From just this bulging, expansive city taking over what was just a bunch of villages that were being strewn together. And now there's subway lines, about to be 5 in the next 2 or 3 years.
That's
there's
crazy.
Raised highways everywhere. The airport is now gone from top 50 in air cargo to top 3. It's nuts.
Well, and we were taking a walk a little bit earlier before you started recording. And, we're in the middle. This is a big developed commercial center with shops and restaurants and whatnot. And we walked up several blocks actually the other direction. And it's all, it's all built up and super modern. And you were telling me that, just like 3, 4, 5 years ago, this was a field. This was farmland.
2013.
Like 2 blocks away was farmland.
It was that that blue corrugated metal wall.
It
just symbolizes construction coming.
Exactly.
It was just a bunch of construction workers nearby that had been squatting and growing corn. And now it's another 30,000 people on another outdoor walking promenade that leads to a subway.
Right.
It's insane.
That's amazing.
But that's opportunity. That
it is.
No offense to America, doesn't exist in America at the moment.
I think that's, my own my own story filters into this, but it's obviously about the guests. But for me, it's exciting to be part of history being written. That's ultimately the big hook for me. Is that being here at this exciting time, and I know that I'm a supporting player. If I'm a rock star here, I'm a supporting player because I'm not Chinese, right? And I'm fine with that. I would rather be, privy to all these interesting developments with this perspective. And so, can you relate to that in your way? How would you respond to that or relate to that? Like, what's the current hook? Again, you have your skills. If you wanted to, you could take this knowledge and go pretty much anywhere. And you could probably replicate this idea in, Paris or something, right?
We've talked about it.
Oh, okay.
We had a guy offer us, he wanted to do a restaurant in Poland. The same thing in Poland.
Okay.
Had a guy offer us to do one in Denver. He says there's no good barbecue in Denver. So it's fun. Like, we have this opportunity here in Zhengzhou to do this. And we have thought about and had many discussions and designed multiple things for other people in this city. But it's hard. We want to go to Shanghai. That's our next step. We feel that we're pretty good at what we do now. And we've got an invitation through, I don't want to mention names. But
you're exploring some things.
Yeah, we're exploring that. The opportunity is insane. Yeah. I could take this to Atlanta probably, but that would be pointless.
Exactly.
Because why would you want to? Why do you need competition? Not that I'm afraid of some healthy competition, Atlanta barbecue, but no offense, Atlanta. But it's
I get about 50 regular listeners in Atlanta who will love that.
What's up, Atlanta? And where are we? I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, we were saying this is more freeform than normal, but that's totally fine. Hopefully the listeners are enjoying.
Don't hold it against
our
me.
Digressions. No, I won't. I'll hold it against that apple cider that you slipped me, but it's good. I appreciate it.
I'll get you a pulled pork sandwich in a minute.
That sounds even better. But no rush. We have more to talk about. So in terms of being here, and the hook that was planted, and you're back home, and you wanted to be here and part of this changing, evolving, dynamic place.
Like I said earlier, it's just sheer luck. I met the woman that's now my wife of 8 years with a beautiful child the second day I was here. Not many people can say that when they move to a new city.
Right.
Sheer luck. I was fortunate enough to have a good friend recommend that this is a great business opportunity, or at least someone needs to do this because it'll be popular here. And I was in a position in my life at the time where I could just sit around and make shitty barbecue for 60 months until I figured it out.
Get all the bad barbecue out of your system until you did it for reals.
And then we got lucky. This has been wildly more successful than we could have ever anticipated. And now we're at a position where we can, like you said, go other places and do the same thing. And I don't know how to express how fortunate and grateful and thankful and all of those nice adjectives that me and my wife are for this opportunity, which is the hook. The hook in China is opportunity.
I think that's really that's important to highlight. I think that's what brings a lot of people here, and there are a lot of people who come here without a direction, or they don't develop a specific passion, and you have one. And so you'd be successful. I think you'd be successful with this most any place. I'm sure there are places that, don't eat barbecue, but I think you would be successful with this most any place you did it. What are some things that, how do you feel like China has changed you?
I hate driving. we won't go on that.
You mean, do you drive here?
Yeah, I haven't had a driver's license here for years.
Okay.
It's just totally different. It's not.
I have no interest.
It's just avoid it. We used to live in the East. Now we live right here. I've removed it from my life.
Nice.
So we don't even need to touch on that.
Yeah, the subways are great. I've become a big fan of the subways in Beijing, and then I also use the
Beijing has,
I use
20?
the 23 million, depending on where you draw the line. Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no point in driving here. It's just too many people. It's changed me and much more straightforward. In America, we are culturally willing to sort of just walk on eggshells to sort of appease each other. Mostly. And being from the South, there's a lot of...
We're very polite. People
Yeah.
misunderstand when I'll say something like "I'm sorry" because a bunch of people are like, "Don't apologize." Well, I'm not apologizing. I'm being polite.
Just acknowledging your existence.
Fucking savage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That escalated. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yes.
Like,
That was for comedic effect.
I'm laughing. You have to be direct here. It's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
They don't sissy-foot it. They like, what do you want? What do you need? How much are you willing to pay? How much are you not willing to pay?
Right.
Okay, fine. Fuck off. Or don't pay. Don't buy it. Go next door.
Right.
So it's for learning a business. It's a really helpful sort of initiation to get right and be groomed with before you do open a business, where you're going to have to be not cutthroat but coarse and direct.
But you understand. You have a sense of where you stand.
Yeah.
In a lot, for better or for worse, you kind of know what people think.
If you're wishy-washy in China, you're not going to get far.
Yeah. So in terms of it changing you, it's made you more direct. It's made you hate driving. I mean, if you're from Atlanta, Atlanta traffic sucked.
Yeah.
And then I moved to L.A.
Ugh.
And then I moved to Beijing. So don't even talk about traffic.
You're just like lowering yourself into the well.
Yeah, pretty much. And I don't drive here. I didn't drive the last many years in L.A. even. But yeah, we're talking about you. So
I don't know. That's a hard question. I mean, I've become a father. I've become a business owner.
Yeah.
So I've had most of my formative independent adult years here. And going home, do you ever go home and just feel not out of place, but you notice things that maybe your friends don't notice because they can't see the forest for all the trees. But
I was going to ask you what your experience is because I actually don't get back very much.
I don't really know, but I do go home and sense. Like I walked into the last year. I went home for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I went immediately from my parents' house, had dinner, said hi, nice to see you. Went to meet some buddies at the bar. Didn't bring my ID. Had a pack of smokes in my pocket.
Oh, you didn't think about it?
I didn't even think about it.
Because you got your phone, so you got your WeChat, which is your WeChat Pay, and you got your Alipay.
So it's nice. Like in a way, there are,
Think about it.
as you know, people like to say, "Oh, China's a blah 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 blah." Well, actually, you're pretty much left alone to your own devices.
We're kind of living in the future.
And whereas when you go home to America, there's police just sitting on the side of the road waiting to pull you over as you creep through a stop sign. Like, you have to try not to run someone over when you creep through an intersection here. So it's totally different. And I went to this bar. The guy was like, "Hold up, man. Where's your ID?" I'm like 33. I was like, "Where's your ID?" He's like, "Oh, mother, I don't."
Yeah.
I just got off an airplane, bro. Like it's sincerely in my suitcase, or in my mom's safety deposit box. I have no idea where it was. Yeah. And I was like, I'm with those people. We graduated in high school together. They're all the same age as me. I promise you. She's like, all right, man, whatever. Just don't let it happen again. Sure. So as soon as we sit down, I get a drink, and I just light up. I'm not even thinking about it.
Right.
China brain's still on. Light up a cigarette in the bar.
That's a no-go.
And the guy who had just been decent enough to let me in pretty much walked up and was like, "Man, I just let you in." And I was like, "Oh, man, I'm sorry. Remember China, sorry."
Well.
So there's a weird sense of regulation in America that, I don't know, like a social regulation or I don't know how to put it. Maybe you can put it better.
Yeah, well, it's again. I
love rules.
I love LA, and I'm pretty moderate when you balance me out, but in terms of social stuff, I'm pretty progressive / lefty. So I appreciate the progressive things that have been happening. Having said that, oh my God,
it's like a police state,
we
isn't
string
it?
ourselves up, and you're like people are looking for like gradations of correctness. To like hang other people out to dry on.
That's something I think
it's a bit over the top.
We've lived through as well. Like that has ever since these devices have showed up that we're now speaking into.
Yeah. We're recording this on my iPhone right now because the big rig is back in Beijing.
And we're kind of. I remember being in high school. You remember having a cell phone? You didn't have a cell phone?
No, when I was in
high school. You probably had card catalogs in high school, didn't you?
Okay, screw off now. No, I'm 17 years older than you, so we didn't have cell phones.
So there's this weird.
We didn't have dial tone phones. No,
you did the little ringing one.
Yeah, the little rotating.
I'll show you the one downstairs. We've got like an old. It was like a Kremlin straight to Putin phone.
Shouldn't that be in Trump's office? Sorry.
Most likely.
We're getting on a tangent.
Don't tell Tillerson.
Sorry.
But the shift, like there's this weird social media shift that we've lived through being abroad.
Totally. And
you've missed it, but you still follow it because you're tapped into what's going on at home.
And I work in media and entertainment, so I'm pretty keyed into all that. But you're right, it doesn't hit me the same way. I see my friends. Hi, everybody. I see my friends back home, some of whom I mean, most of whom are quote unquote woke, many of whom actually have real skin in the game, either personally or professionally, in some of these. And so I see people going through these massive upheavals, and in one sense, I feel very removed from that. I mean, one part, I know from whence I came, but I'm living in China, so it's a different reality.
Do you read Chinese?
No, I don't.
I don't either.
No,
So
I don't either. No,
so I don't. I'm not even tapped into what. I mean, I'm sure it exists
Right.
here. I know it does. My wife is always looking at something on her pad or.
Yeah, I mean, I translate the things on, from the WeChat articles and stuff. I mean, I will translate things, which is as good as the WeChat or Google Translate can do, but it's, you can't.
There's a sense. There's a much more, and I don't want to generalize here. That's something I want to avoid. But there's a much more sort of practical sense here. Where we are much more progressive, I think, in America, and that's just the nature of our history and versus theirs.
And I think that's to our credit. I mean, and
Absolutely.
I'm giving us credit. My friends back
I
then
think
giving
that's
us
great.
credit as Americans. Yeah.
But it's nice in a way to not be in the sort of toxicity that you can kind of feel it seeping through the speaker on your phone when your phone's just jumping out of your hands with stupid. You ever go on Yahoo News? Oh my god!
I have not, no, but I have most of my notifications muted. I did that back in LA as a mental health thing. I had to. I had to be able to control that stuff to a degree, and I guess that's the difference for me. Is when I walk out of the door. I mean, look, I'm sorry because I have conservative friends. When I walk out the door here, Trump's not the president where I am living, right? I mean, I can't deny that that's reality.
So you can avoid talking about it. You can go about your day.
Totally.
It's nice.
And actually, it's like people here have I shouldn't generalize so hugely. It was going to be positive, but I'll stop myself from making a giant blanket statement. Other than to say that people are basically, my sense from all of my friends, most of whom are Chinese here, is that people are generally pleased with the opportunities of their life and the possibilities they have for their future.
And I'm lucky that I get my wife to sort of be the little angel on my right shoulder to tell me all the things that I'm wrong about or the generalizations that I make. And she, if you were to ask her, you should. I don't know if you have time, but
I'll talk to her while I'm having a pulled pork sandwich here in a little bit.
Times are good here.
Yeah.
You talk to her grandparents. There's some fucked up shit that happened here historically that can't be helped. It happened, and now these people, their grandparents, have pulled themselves out of it. They've made a family. Their children have made another family. Now you're 3 generations into it, and times are good. People are making money. Things are growing fast, and there's opportunity abound for everyone, including us. So that's the difference. Look at that. We came right back to it, didn't we?
We did, man.
Nice.
Look, we better end it there because we're not going to get more positive than that.
Nice.
Dude, Zach, thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in.
Absolutely,
that was awesome.
All right, that's the show this week. Don't forget to find out more about Zach's Barbecue, me, or the show. You can get all the links at the website, which is crazyinagoodway.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.